Hey, good morning. It's Monday morning. So I wanted to jump on, and what I want to do, the idea of these lives is I want to go through my kind of last 7 days, what I'm seeing, ways that we could potentially improve our ads. So two topics of conversation today. The first one is, should we listen to Google Ads reps? I went through some audits. I do free audits on a weekly basis, and one particular account came to me and it was doing okay, and then literally overnight tanked. Client came to me to ask me to look at the account, why it had been performing well, and then it had tanked, and the reason was, I'll explain in a bit. I'll explain shortly. The second thing I wanted to just run through was, another thing I'm seeing is, one of the easiest ways we can improve the amount of conversions we're getting through is to have different steps. And one of those steps is adding in call extensions, or call assets in 2026. It's a fantastic way that we can generate more conversions. And if you think that if somebody sees your ad and they make a phone call, then that's going to be proactive for you, because they're picking up the phone, they're making a phone call to you to make sure that they're inquiring about your product or your service. So whether it's service based or e-commerce, it doesn't really make a difference. They're still making a phone call to you. Now, the problem lies is, what happens when people pick up the phone to phone your business to ask for a job, or they ask for, hi XYZ, I'm just phoning, my name's Chris and I'm looking for a job. You don't want that to be classed as a conversion in your Google Ads. So that's the first thing I want to kind of clarify. And also, sometimes you get people who will phone, maybe it's a wrong number or it's a misdial or something along those lines. So you don't want those type of spammy, kind of not quite right conversions to be counted as a conversion to your Google Ads. So things that we can improve with our call ads. First thing, when you're adding in conversion counting, so when you create your Google tracking, which I'm going to actually probably do a video today on that. So look at the channel and you'll see some stuff on conversion tracking. It's easy to do, but there's a number of different trackings that we need to do, but I'm not going to go into that now. What I want to go through is some simple steps that you can improve the quality of your Google ad calls coming through. So make sure when you set your goals, set it only as once rather than every. I've been into a number of accounts and I've been with some quite prominent people who have big followings and work with them on their accounts, and they get this setting right, they get this setting wrong, for calls, as well as submitting leads for lead generation. E-commerce is slightly different for leads. Sorry, not for leads, for when somebody buys a product, you set it up slightly differently, obviously. But if we're focusing on lead generation, you only want to set this up once for forms and for calls. And again, if we're jumping over to e-commerce, then for calls, we only want to set that up as converting once. Now, why do we want to do that? If somebody clicks on your call extension in your Google Ads, what's going to happen is it's just going to skew your data, because if they're clicking on it 3, 4, 5 times, maybe their computer's frozen, or maybe there's an issue or glitch, or it hasn't come through quick enough. They're going to click on that call and it's going to skew your data, because it's going to show that you've had 5 calls coming through when actually you've only had 1 call. So make sure that you have that set to 1 rather than every. That's the first thing. Call duration. You want to be setting that at around sort of, it's entirely up to you as an advertiser how you want to set this up for time-wise, but you kind of want to be sort of like around sort of 30 plus seconds, 60 seconds if you want a very high quality call. And the reason we do that is what I said at the beginning of this conversation, is that if somebody's picking up for a job, they're going to say, hi, XY, I'm looking for a job. Or you can say, oh no, we're not advertising, or we're not looking for that. We don't want to show that as a conversion if they're looking for a job or a missed call. So that's why we add this call duration at 30, 40, 50 seconds. That, as an advertiser, is something that you want to do. Now, you can also from there look at the call logs, see the searched keywords actually converted. And again, that's another bit of data that we can add in to make sure that the ads are staying relevant. Friction in forms. Use multiple steps for your forms. If somebody is clicking on your Google Ads and they, without beating around the bush, if they're not going to spend an extra 20 seconds to fill out your form, and you've got 3 questions that you're answering. And then, what type of a lead or quality lead is that going to be? So again, if you're wanting better quality leads, you're going to make sure that the steps to fill out the form are going to be more detailed. So it could be 3 steps, 5 steps, 6 steps. Is a real fine line, but test this. Always test it with you. Some advertisers will say do this, others will say that. I say test it. Every market's slightly different. The more steps you have, the chances are it's going to be less spammy, and the quality of the lead's going to be better, because they're going to spend a little bit of more time to actually want to fill out the form to give you the correct information. So the 3 main things is conversion counting. Make sure you've set that as 1. Call duration, 30, 40, 50, 60 seconds, because you don't want Google tracking a call duration for 1 second if it's not a good conversion. Remember, all the data that we're collecting and we're feeding back into Google, it's learning what you want as an advertiser. So if you have high standards, then you'll have a better quality lead. And the way we do that as advertisers is the way I'm showing you when you're setting up your call assets for creating a conversion within your Google Ads. So if you follow those steps, you're going to get better quality leads. And if you're doing that, then obviously you're going to have a lot less conversions coming through, but you don't necessarily want a lot of conversions. You want good quality conversions. So always with Google, it's a fine line between having a lot of conversions. I can get anyone a lot of conversions, but if you want quality conversions, then that's going to come down, because you're going to be setting certain criteria, which I've mentioned. So conversion counting, call duration, and friction in forms, which is just you setting multiple steps to navigate to make sure that the qualified prospect is qualified, and that's the way you do it. And if you're finding you're getting spam, just add some more questions to your form. So that's kind of how you would improve the quality of your call. And the reason I bring it up, I've seen this happen a number of times this week over the last 7 days where I've audited accounts. They've said they're getting low quality calls coming through, and this is probably one of the easiest things that we can do as advertisers to make sure that we're making that quality. So less calls, but more quality calls coming through. And then you're training the algorithm. And that's what we're doing with Facebook, with Google, is we're training the algorithm, that bit of pixel that you're installing on your landing page or website. We're making sure that that's learning what you are saying is a qualified lead. And again, that's an ongoing basis. That's something that you can adjust. So not getting enough leads, then maybe lower the steps to your forms. If very spammy, not enough quality, then increase the steps. And again, look at your call duration, 30, 40, 50 seconds for your call duration. It depends on what you're wanting to see or what the data tells you. Always follow the data. Don't necessarily need to follow other advertisers. Just consistently test different things and see what that says. Now, I've covered that in a bit of detail, and it's quite straightforward, but the amount of times people miss that, and even advertisers who've been doing Google Ads for supposedly a number of years don't get this right. The basics, if you get the basics right, you'll improve your ad performance 100%. A lot of people seem to skip the basics and go to try and find some advanced strategies, which sometimes work, sometimes don't work. I'm not going to go into detail on those advanced strategies, but get the basics right and the rest will follow. If you have a good foundation, then you'll create a good platform for you to get good data. So tracking, make sure that's in place for your calls, and then I've given you the steps. Now, let's move on to the next thing that I wanted to talk about today. That is Google Ads reps. Very much similar to Meta Ads reps. Do you, as an advertiser, especially if you're coming into Google Ads, do you want to be taking those calls? Now, I took a call last week. I don't normally take calls from them, but I thought I'll jump onto a call, see what they had to say for an account that was pretty well optimized, spending a lot of money. And my previous experience wasn't that particularly good. And also I'd spoken to, like I mentioned earlier, I jumped onto an account, and basically the client or this particular advertiser who wasn't working with me had jumped on to a call with a Google Ads rep, and the rep had given him a load of information and basically tanked the account. Now, and it was very similar, the things he was telling me to when I spoke to the rep on Thursday last week. And I'm just going to run through the conversation. So we jumped on the call, we went through didn't really ask me a lot of questions. Obviously was reading from a script, and wanted me to change the bid strategy, which made absolutely no sense. There was no reasoning. And then when I tried to explain the reasoning, um, he was very much adamant that even though I've been doing this for almost 12 years, 11 and a half years, advertising on Google, that he knew the best strategy for my Google ads, which made no sense to me. Then we came on to recommendations. He wanted me to go through recommendations and add those through the auto apply. So we went through the auto apply, which is a setting in Google where you can automatically let Google take control of a number of things. And I think there was something like 6 settings he wanted me to add into the account. Now, if I'd done that, which is exactly when I audited this other account on Tuesday last week, he had added in 7 auto applies, and these are things like changing bid strategy. You know, the 2 biggest things you can do in your Google ads is change your bidding strategy and increase your budget. If you do those, then the account goes into a learning phase. If you're going to increase your budget, you do it by 20%. The budget had been increased through this audit that I'd gone through by, they had doubled the budget, because Google had said if you double your budget, you'll get double the amount of conversions. And it doesn't work that way, because of as you increase budgets, then you need to wait a period of time, and you don't increase them by double. So this potential client had a budget of 400 a day and increased it to 800. That's the worst thing you can do with Google. So what happened? Clicks and impressions had tanked, and he had come to me to explain why this had happened. I went through the auto reply, explained the reasons. He said that he had done it, but it was advised by his Google Ads rep. And then I explained, once you do these things, there's nothing anyone can do. You have to then leave the account to kind of then reset. It has to figure out where to spend the money. Do we have the placements for the budget? You can reduce the budget back, but then it goes into a learning phase, and it can take weeks, if not months, to then recover an account. And the bigger, obviously, the budget, then it's going to take a longer period of time. So we don't increase budgets overnight by double, especially if you've got a bigger budget. A lot of auto replies were added. Bidding strategy was changed. So like I said, you don't change the budget and the bidding strategy on the same day. There was a number of different things. And this was the information I was getting from the Google Ads rep, was to change the budget more than 20%, which was crazy. Change the bidding strategy, which made absolutely no sense. So we had a branding, we had 2 branding campaigns. I wanted to change both. And then we had a number of other campaigns, which I had created based on the strategy. He wanted me to try some different strategies. Google isn't the place to be. You've got to understand what you're doing with Google, and I wasn't prepared to try a strategy and see how it goes, because potentially I would lose that client in a week or 2. So I wasn't prepared to try, as he suggested. So there was some discrepancies of information, and it was quite frustrating, actually, because he's literally guiding me into the particular campaign, and he said, okay, you go to bidding strategy and then make the change now. Like, no, I'm not going to make the change now. He's like, well, why not? I still have explained to you. And he's like, it just didn't make sense to him, because he was reading from a script. So you have to take everything with a pinch of salt. Everything with Google needs to be done little and often and over a period of time. And like I said, you don't change the budget and you don't change bidding strategies on the same day. So even though I spent a bit of time with the Google Ads strategy, I won't be doing that again, the strategist, because most of what was being said was incorrect information. And if I didn't know any better, the way I was being guided down certain paths would have literally, like I said, tanked the account. So just be careful if you're jumping on with account strategists who probably haven't actually run any Google Ads in their life before. Have a good understanding of where to navigate, but not necessarily the meaning behind. And that's where we need to educate ourselves as advertisers, especially in 2026. Now, so what did I do with the account that had auto apply? Well, I turned off all the auto applies off. We put the budget back. Now I've just got to see how, if the Google, the clicks and impressions for the campaigns, it's going to take time for those to then pick back up. Clicks is when somebody sees your account and they're clicking on. Impressions is how many times your ads are being seen. So we need clicks and impressions. They're not They're not vanity metrics. They're something that you need in Google. If you think about the more clicks and impressions you're getting, then they both mean different things. So if we're getting clicks and impressions are pulling back, that means something different to vice versa. So, and then we need to look at the cost per click as well. So if you're increasing the budget massively, you can potentially then see your cost per click increase, which means that potentially you've, without realizing, scaled an account, but you've hit a CPC resistance, which means that there actually wasn't room for you to scale. And then you have to look at auction insights. See, there's lots of, as I'm going into this and I'm explaining it, you can see you can go down different rabbit holes because there's different bits or different placements within Google to know how to or why we're doing what we're doing. Remember, small optimizations on a weekly basis is key, whether you're running 30 a day or 3,000 a day or whatever your budget is. It's still the same principles, small optimizations. If you're increasing the budget over kind of £50, $50, 20% increments over time, just do it 20%, wait 5 to 7 days, clicks and impressions, look at those, look at the conversions. If you're finding everything's fine, then do another 20%. There's no need to be scaling overnight if we're in a rush to get to where we need to. We need to be doing it in a correct manner. And if you have a good fundamental understanding of Google, you know that it takes time to scale up. And then if you're pulling back, it's the same principle. So it's peaks and troughs with Google. And then from there, what we're trying to do is get more clicks and impressions, which generally is going to give us more conversions based on the data that we're seeing. So don't necessarily be wanting to jump into speak to a Google Ads rep to take the recommendations, and especially do not add those auto apply recommendations that they suggest, because literally every change you make, then whenever that auto apply kicks in, it will just make a number of changes without you realizing. Other thing that was recommended before I kind of wrap this up, adding broad terms. Now, again, this account I looked at, there was 20 broad terms. It was 21 broad terms were added, which is absolutely crazy. Absolute waste of money. There was very little optimization going on anyway, but by adding 21 terms in, it just doesn't make sense. You cannot have 21 broad terms in a campaign. Plus there was some additional broad. So overall there was 26 broad terms, very little exact. And again, when I jumped on with the Google rep, it was the same type of thing. He was, let's add in another 12 broad, which made no sense. Where are we getting this information from? Oh, from Google recommends to add in more broad. And again, if you do that, you'll tank the campaign. It's not something, if you're going to add broad terms in, add one, maybe two, but you don't add 10, 15, 20 broad terms in one go. Do everything over time. Google shouldn't be seen. Okay, let's explain something clearly. Google should not be seen as a platform that is something that should be advertised for a week or two. You should be looking at Google as a long-term platform for a period of months, and then you're building upon the data to improve. You're looking at the headlines, descriptions, you're looking at the keywords, you're looking at broad terms, you're looking at exact terms, you're looking at different strategies. And again, depending on what your strategy is, small optimizations on a weekly basis, and then looking over at the trends for 30, 60, 90 days for Google. It's not a platform that you can look on a weekly basis and run for 3 weeks, have it on and then turn it off and expect to get great results. Yeah, you might get okay results, but if you're truly wanting to have an evergreen flow of business coming through from Google, then it's those longer term time frames that we want to be running with Google Ads. So I hope that makes sense. If you want me to look at your Google Ads, then always happy to. There's a form somewhere you can fill out, calendar link, and I'm happy to again jump into your Google Ads. But like I said, just make those optimizations. We have to take control as advertisers in 2026. All this AI is fantastic, but it still needs the human element. And having the auto apply is not AI. It's crazy if you put the auto apply. And yeah, so that's my kind of 2 pence for the day. If you have any questions, let me know. But that's what's happened in the last 7 days. And again, end of the week or next week, I'll do another live and then go through another kind of set of different things that I've gone through over the last 7 days, mistakes that you can really be preventing from you implementing to your Google Ad account. So I hope that makes sense. We'll speak to you soon.